how do we feel excited when we wake up in the morning?
Yeah. I feel like if I can get these, what we call performance anchors, these are non-specific hidden stressors a lot of the times. So these are things that are adding stress to your system that you are not aware of, that is not pointing you in the right direction. We started off by asking about stress. So stress is needed for adaptation, right? It's also needed for maintenance, right? If we don't have stress, things go away. So if you're living a great life and you're in a great position, no, you're good. You still have to have some stress to maintain that. Okay, awesome. That's phenomenal. I just want to take away any stressor that is not there with intent, right? You may be visible and aware of that. We call those visible stressors. These are things you see and feel. What are you eating? What are you drinking? Like, what is your sleep? And are you not moving? Things like that.
Sure.
Then you have a whole subset of hidden stressors. These are applying same or greater stress to the system that you are not aware of. I just want to remove those things and then get the fuck out of the way.
Yeah.
Let your physiology run where it wants to run. It is always smarter than us.
Your task is not to find love. It's to remove the barriers blocking you from experiencing it.
Yeah.
That's like paraphrased from somebody, but it's like you're reaching out for the thing. It's like, maybe just stop blocking yourself.
That's literally what we're doing. And then we are getting out of the way of physiology. And that's why I said at the end of our stuff is the goal I'm going to is that if I can just get all those things out of your way, and you don't have to be on 25 supplements and have a restrictive diet and a specific daily, like, I don't want any of those things. That's the best place possible to be in.
Yeah, I think a lot of times when someone goes overboard with supplements, like I might fall into this category, it's like they're actually, you mentioned before, there's like a deeper layer of what's happening. I think a lot of that times it's a person that's experiencing some type of like obsessive compulsive relationship with their food consumptions or the supplementation. It's like they're actually at a deep subconscious mental emotional level. They feel out of control.
Yeah.
And they're seeking control anywhere they can find it, like, and they've like latched onto health, you know, and it's like, but there's still that kind of like parasitic emotional tension that's creating a pool. And this, again, it gets out of the world of like science and data. So it's kind of harder for, I think, to
yeah, not my expertise at all.
But does that resonate, you know, like something like your relationship to food, your relationship to training, your relationship to supplementation?
Okay. I can comment on something like this. Think about respiratory rate. All right. So how much you're breathing, right? How much you're ventilating. There is a no short number of times we've seen this. And we actually spent a lot of time on this. This is great work. Brian McKenzie has a lot of stuff on this, as well as Martin McFeely. Phenomenal stuff on this. I think they've got some webinars or something. You could check this out. But think about it this way. If you are overventilating, so you're breathing too much, you're hyperventilating, here's what's kind of happening. I'll skip a lot of the physiology and science, but I'm looking for 15 breaths per minute. Okay, when I start seeing people at 14 to 15 breaths per minute overnight ventilation rate, I'm starting to get concerned, right? At 13, I'm taking action. These numbers should be 12 to 10-ish. Okay, now if you look at the science, it's going to say 12 to 20 is normal. And I don't think I need to explain to you and your audience why. Like, reference ranges for what we're all trying to go after are really bad ideas. I don't give a rat's shit about that reference range.
Yeah, sure.
100%, and there's extensive data on this. North of 15, especially north of 16 breaths per minute, are strongly associated with negative health outcomes. Okay, if 16 is bad for me clinically, I don't want to be 15.5 either. Like, we want to be away from that. Now, one of the things that happens with that is when you hyperventilate, what you're doing, and it could be one of three things. It could be biomechanical. So your breathing mechanics are bad. It could be pattern recognition. I'll come back to that. And that's exactly what you're really asking. And the third, it could be biochemistry. Mm-hmm. And so really, really briefly on that, you spent a ton of time, and anyone who's listening to the show, like, you've probably covered mechanics extensively.
Yeah.
We'll skip past that. Biochemically, what you're generally looking at is CO2.
Yeah, the Bohr effect.
Well, you're going to screw the Bohr effect by doing this. Yeah. Right. And so CO2, increases in CO2 are the primary bidirectional relationship we have to engage psychology and physiology back and forth. This is the lever you're pulling, right? So psychological stressors can act upon physiology via carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide from tissue can tell the brain and psychology what's happening. This is one of the ways you regulate up and down parasympathetic, sympathetic CO2. If you are overly sensitive to CO2, again, would just be in the case of biochemical. This gives you the air hunger sensation, which means you have the sensation to breathe. If you're breathing at a rate that your respiratory rate no longer matches metabolic demand, right? You're overbreathing. then you feel a certain way because hypocapnia has happened. CO2 concentrations have gotten too low. This puts you in respiratory alkalosis, which then causes the kidneys to put you into metabolic acidosis. This is a balance. In fact, there's great research, lots of papers on a lot of diagnosed metabolic acidosis is improperly diagnosed and is actually respiratory alkalosis.
And that causes red blood cells to become stingy with holding on to oxygen as well.
The metabolic acidosis is not the problem, but the hypocapnia is. So the drop of CO2 causes it, and it's a little bit
which becomes a self-perpetuating issue because now you're hungrier for air and you feel like you're starving.
100%. So it actually keeps the red blood cells attached to, or the oxygen attached to red blood cells, which is actually one of the things albumin's doing, by the way. But nonetheless, so you're not getting
you love albumin, bro.
It represents like 60% of the osmotic pressure in your vessels. It's pretty important. So we're not getting actual oxygen into tissue. And I'm circling back to your point here. I promise in a second here. I think you're going to like this a lot. So that becomes a huge problem. That's a chemical response. Now, why did you start overbreathing in the first place? Well, hyperventilation is a known response. It is a good response to CO2 buildup. So you start exercising, CO2 builds up, you start breathing more. That's what's supposed to happen, right? Could be a psychological thing as well. You and I are probably hyperventilating right now. Mildly. We're excited. We're interested. Haven't seen each other in a while. Like, great conversation.
I'm rock hard right now, bro.
Yeah. Great. Fantastic. So great. This is a positive association. However, when this is done chronically, this becomes a problem for the things I just mentioned. All right. Now, if I'm doing that at night, even mildly, 15, 16 breaths per minute, I'm in that potential or that consistent hypocapnic state, which means HRV is going to get lowered because I'm slightly sympathetic. We start having latency issues, can't fall asleep as well. Waking up, this is common for people who, like, I wake up, and when I wake up, I can't go back to sleep.
Sure.
Things like that, right? So we can cover that. These people tend to feel the best when they're doing very low-level activity. The reason why? If you're breathing 15, 16 breaths per minute, sleeping, and now you start walking, you do endurance exercise, you go for a run, and you feel bliss, you feel amazing. These people tend to not be able to, like, I can't miss a day of training. I can't not work out today. I feel anxious. I feel horrible if I don't move something today. It's because you're now finally having your respiratory rate match your metabolic rate, and now you feel normal. Your CO2 concentrations are actually equal.
Interesting. It's like it's like growing up in an abusive household and then finding an abusive relationship to feel like home as an adult.
That's a bit,
you're
maybe.
like, homeostasis. This is what I know.
100%. And so someone like what you said earlier is like, there's maybe that negative relationship there. These are people, when you take training away, things go bad.
Oh, they freak out.
Wow. They don't know it. But it's not always, but you go look at the respiratory rate and you're like, oh yeah, you overbreathe. That's why they freak out. That's why they have that tie, that relationship that, like, I have to do these things, right?
Oh, so they're like, they want their breathing cadence in a way to match their
energy
expenditure, their structural mechanical output.
Yeah.
And there's like a mismatch when you're just sitting there kind of working out.
100%.
Whoa.